this is the way you're going to make an impact in this world, is by teaching people, I call it the new rules of finance, but the system around it so that they can get to their freedom sooner. However they define it, it's not for me to define it. It's for, look, if part of your thing is yacht, private jet, 3 houses all around the world, and that's your definition of freedom, great. How do we get there sooner?
Yeah. Oh, that's fascinating. And so, but there's everything's changing so much right now. How do you stay ahead of all these new changes? I'm going to tell you the like legal landscape on certain things in the last 8 years has changed. And now banking and things are changing. So how are you staying ahead of all that?
Yeah, I mean, I kind of put this as the risk factors to understanding the system. Some of it can be mitigated. And so here's kind of the 4 risk factors that I boil it down to. Number 1, you have to have the cash flow. It's just math when you boil this down. If income is not greater than expenses on a consistent basis, this will not work, period, end of story. Number 2, you have to understand the rate is variable. Okay. And that freaks people out because they're like, they can budget when they know this is the fixed payment and I can kind of work with that. I say, screw budgets.
Okay.
If you understand how the system works. Okay. And here's what I mean is that when the interest rates were low in 2021, my average house payment was $350 a month.
Wow.
In 2022, while the interest rates were increasing, my average house payment was $500 a month. For the last 2 years, while the interest rates were high, my average house payment has been $600 a month. And so I'm just going to ask you, which is easier to pay? My variable payment of $600 or your fixed payment of whatever it is, whatever in your mind? I guarantee you it's not $600.
Yeah, no, it's not $600.
Okay. And so, yes, the interest rate moving is a risk, but my monthly cash burn is less, and I'm okay with that because I accept the risk. The third thing is a line of credit can get closed, and this is what everyone goes back to. I thought in 2008, 2009, they were closing lines of credit everywhere. The answer is yeah, not really. So you only hear the headlines from Mace Bank and Hell's Cargo and Crank of America and Capital One because they're the national banks. They're going to be the ones that get the headlines. And so I don't like working with them. I prefer to work with regional banks, community banks, credit unions, because they're your neighbor. They're in your economy. They don't make these rash decisions unless you're being stupid with the line. Then that's a problem, which then gets me to the last and biggest and most precarious risk of this is that you raid the piggy bank. I've got an acquaintance, and I use that term very loosely. At one point, the husband was part of the Watch of the Month Club, and I believe they still have a car lease payment of $1,300 a month. Okay. Now, the family does just fine. I could care less what they spend it on, but if you got them in a corner and you ask them why are you spending on this stuff? It doesn't take long to get to the truth. To impress our circle of friends. And so the problem with that is that there's no end game to that. So if I showed this couple the system, they would start it, they would raid the piggy bank, they come back and say, Howard, this doesn't work. I just look at them and say, no, you're just an idiot. You're an idiot that happens to make a lot of money, but you're still an idiot. And so you know you better than I know you. And if this idea of now having access to a giant wad of cash, your next immediate thought is, I'm going to go buy a Lamborghini, unless you already have the cash flow to justify the purchase of the Lamborghini, this is not the right system for you.
Yeah, but if you can be disciplined, even if it's just a tiny bit of cash flow, as long as you can discipline yourself and get a goal. A lot of it is just getting a goal and know that you're working towards a goal. Mindset with anything is going to be one of the most important things I feel, with this, just like it is in business, and it is mapping out a goal. It's so easy to get on the hamster wheel of just taking care of patients and paying your bills and dealing with staff problems. And that's all you have time for. And you're exhausted all the time. When, if you said, what's your goal and what are the 3 things you did today to get you to that goal? And you really can't answer that question. Not really, because you really aren't being purposeful with the goal setting, or it's just some pie in the sky thing that's not really connected to your heart and your soul, then you'll never get there. But if you can make that shift in your mind to be work with more intent and purpose, then it doesn't take much to start getting where you really want to go.